This is Get Sellers Calling You, and I'm Beatty Carmichael. Learn more at our website at getsellerscallingyou.com. Hey, I'm Beatty Carmichael, and welcome to the Get Sellers Calling You Realtor Podcast. And I'm excited today to visit with another wonderful agent, actually a client of ours named Carrie George from Cremming, Colorado. Carrie, say hello and tell us where Cremming is.
Hi there, everyone. Cremming is located in the northwest portion of Colorado. So oftentimes I tell people we are in between Silverthorne, and that's where the ski resorts like Breckenridge and Keystone are. So we're in between there and Steamboat Springs, a really beautiful valley of the Rocky Mountains.
Well, you are definitely in God's beautiful green earth, and I guess sometimes white earth out there during the wintertime.
Yes.
So,
Still,
I bet. I'm over here in short sleeves, and it's warm outside. Well, I'm really excited to visit with you, Carrie, because I know you got a real strong, stable business. We've talked, and you've got some really great balance in your life, and I think there's a lot of things to share because having a stable business, having balance, still handling the challenges, but managing them in a really great way is a combination that you don't always find. So I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
Also, just for a reminder of those who are on the call, watching or listening, it is an internet call, so please pardon any internet interruptions that may occur. So I guess to get started, Carrie, can you tell me a little bit about yourself as a realtor? Maybe how long you've been in business and just anything that gives people an idea of understanding who is this person we're talking to and why should I listen to you, right?
Perfect. So I've been a realtor for 15 years. I got my license back in 2004. I kind of came into this business sort of by chance. I never really thought that a real estate career was something that I'd want to do. But at the time I was transitioning from being the Chamber of Commerce director here in our little town, which was a very fulfilling job, but it was very hard and I got paid very little money. But I met a lot of great people and learned a lot about our area. So in hindsight, it was a really nice segue to go from being the Chamber of Commerce director and moving into real estate because I already had connections with so many people. One of the things that I love most about real estate is the creative aspect of it, the marketing, the photography, the new technology that we are always seeing coming down the pike is I love that kind of ever-changing aspect of our business. I work in a small community. There's 4 full-time realtors in our town, which is unusual. I think most people are in bigger cities where there's a lot more saturation.
So you don't have hardly any competition there, right?
Really don't. I mean, and I have to pinch myself sometimes and thank God because in a lot of ways there's parts of it that are really easy. And then in a lot of ways there's parts that are very hard. I feel like sometimes a big fish in a small pond where I have sort of this one little area that I do real estate and that sometimes is hard to branch into other parts of our county. So it comes with its bonuses and negatives being in a small community, mainly positives though.
Well, now what type of markets do you typically do? Now, I know we were talking a little bit before the call, but what have you found to be kind of that real stable niche or focus that drives your business?
So lots of residential. I'd say about half my business is second homeowners and the other half is primary residence. I love doing residential real estate the most. I will also do vacant land and commercial, but selling houses and photographing houses is way more fun than taking a picture of a piece of dirt. So because they're 2 very different markets, the primary resident and the second homeowner, you have to kind of have different marketing approaches to deal with those 2 different clientele. So, my primary residents, these are people that I know, that I see all the time. Our kids go to school together, just building really strong relationships with them that have to do with real estate and then don't have to do with real estate. And then with the second homeowners, finding other ways to reach them, usually through direct mail and farming certain areas is the way that I'm reaching out to those people.
Well, I'd like to talk on the second homeowner market first, because it's kind of a unique niche. And for those that are in that niche, there's always the question, how do I grow it? Okay. And I know that there's probably going to be folks listening to this saying, well, oh, she's only competing with 3 or 4 other realtors, so it doesn't matter what she does. She's just going, it's easy to get business. In fact, let me ask that question first. Is it really easy to get business because there's not that many realtors, or are you still kind of find that there are things you have to consistently do if you want the business to keep coming in?
Oh, there definitely is. One of the agents here in town, she was born and raised in this community. She knows everybody and everybody knows her. And so, even though there are just a few of us, you still have to have your game. You still have to, you cannot take a back seat to this business. Everybody who's in the business knows that when you're in sales, your effort is 100% related to your success.
So true.
So it's very much still, and my personality is that I don't like doing a job halfway. I really care about what I put out there. I care about what my voice sounds like through my marketing, and how my voice sounds in person. And so being authentic is very, very important to me, and that has got to come through in the marketing as well.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know that was in our conversation before the call. That was the number one thing you mentioned, is just that authenticity, or being authentic. I'm not sure what the word is I was trying to pull up. So talk to me about being authentic, and talk to me. So after 15 years, you found you've gone through those things. You've experimented, I'm sure, with things that just didn't work and those things that did.
Yep.
How does the impact of being authentic impact your business, and what are you doing to be authentic so people actually will come do business with you and repeat business?
So I have a perfect case study for this exact example. There's a couple of area subdivisions that are nearby, and I'd have a buyer who, hey, I really want to be in this one particular area, and say, okay, great, let's send a letter out to all of the homeowners and see if anybody's been thinking about selling. So I'd write a nice letter. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. I have a buyer looking in your area. Have you thought about selling your home? And I literally got 0 response from these letters that I would send out, but I would still do them because I thought, well, you never know. Somebody might really be thinking about it. Just recently, we have a new pastor coming to town, and he found an area that was really attractive to him. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit of a different strategy this time. I'm going to be really specific in my letter. I'm going to use his name. I'm going to use his wife's name. I'm going to say that he has 2 kids. I'm going to say he's the new pastor at our church. And I put all of that in the letter. I had him review it before I sent it out, and off it went. Well, I had 400 times more response from that letter than I did from all of my subsequent letters.
Wow.
So you're probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with being authentic? Well, I think what it has to do with being authentic is, I think if I would have put my head into a seller's head who had just received a very generic letter from me, it's possible they might have been thinking that I'm just fishing for listings. And that is not part of my personality. One of the things I pride myself on is integrity and honesty. And so I knew I had a buyer for that specific area, but those sellers didn't. And my letter sounded exactly like everybody else's letter. Hey, I have a buyer. Are you thinking about selling your house? And until I was using specific examples, I was not getting the kind of traction that I wanted. And so now I've totally changed my strategy with this. I've got another guy who's looking in the same area. I said, Brian, I'm going to use your name. And he said, okay, go ahead. Tell him exactly what I'm looking for. And I feel that being authentic, being honest, being straightforward, being using the most integrity that you possibly can is a way that you will kind of bridge that gap from salesperson to seller and actually start to create a real connection and a real relationship with somebody.
That's interesting, because in marketing, what we find is if you're very specific, you're believable.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that what you're doing is you are being very specific with not, I have a client, but I have this particular client.
Yes.
Here's what he's looking for. And so the more specificity you give, the more believable, or in your words, more authentic it is. And now they know this is a real solicitation for a
Right.
real prospect who
Exactly.
really wants to move in this area, and it's very legitimate.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I was really pleased. I thought, wow, it took me 15 years to figure this out, but now this is my new strategy.
Well, very good, very good. So let's talk about, is there any other examples or any other things that you can share on what you do? You mentioned earlier, and I want to come back to this, your voice, okay?
Mhm.
When you talk about your voice, what are you, for those that are listening, what do you mean by that?
So anyone who's in real estate or has been thinking about getting into real estate, if you Google any of that, like how to be a successful realtor, you'll start to see some of these kind of bullet points like, well, you should cold call, you should call for sale by owners, you should work the expired list. And to me, all of those things they probably do work. I don't think they work for me because they don't feel authentic to me. I am a very not pushy person, and that has actually worked to my benefit because I have clients all the time who will tell me, thank you for not being pushy. They also put that in their reviews that they do for me after a sale. And so I think then people choose to work with me because they know I'm not going to be pushy. I really feel that buyers and sellers are decision makers. I'm there to guide them, to counsel them, to provide as much information as possible so that they can make the decision that is most appropriate for them and their family.
Oops, I had me on mute. I was saying that was great. I love it.
Thank
Um,
you.
so now talk to me in terms of driving business from your second homeowners.
Mhm,
What type of things do you find that's really the things that work, those
mhm.
things that don't, and are you? So let's go down that route a little bit, can we?
Okay. The
Okay.
second homeowners. Okay. So for second homeowners, I mainly do direct mail. I know a lot of agents are totally moving away from some of the old school marketing styles. I personally think that direct mail still works very well if you use the right pieces. Um, I still really like getting an envelope and hand addressing it because I think people will then open it. So that's if I have something really important and specific to send to somebody in a certain area, like a second homeowner, I will take the time and hand address envelopes.
Wow.
Your hand is sore. Don't get me wrong, but I think the open rate goes up so much when you take the extra time to hand address envelopes. So again, I will sometimes do a market update. If there's something that's been recently sold, I'll do a quick analysis for them because again, I think just sold and just listing postcards have their place, but I know that sellers get a lot of those. And so instead of maybe sending a just sold postcard, why not break it down and say, here's the last 4 sales and why are these sales significant? Are these the highest sales in this subdivision in, X number of years? That's what we're finding in our market is that it's so strong that that's a great pitch that you can send out to sellers to say, did you know in the past 12 months, we've had the 4 highest sales that your subdivision has ever seen? As a homeowner, that would be something that would be really important for me to know. Not just, hey, our market's really hot and everything's really great, but give me something specific that I can work on. So I'll do things like that. And then I also try and do things that are really visually and design wise very appealing. Because that's another thing that's very important to me. I'm kind of like a marketing geek. I love anything to do with marketing. And the way something looks is really important to me. I recognize that sometimes I have analysis paralysis where I'll work so hard on something and I want it to be just perfect. But then I heard a quote the other day that perfectionism is actually procrastination in disguise. And I
I
was
love
like,
it. Yeah.
oh, that's me. That is totally me. So I've let go of some of that, but I do really care about how something looks because I want to be proud of what I send out, and I also want sellers to see a piece from me and say, this person put a lot of thought and care into putting this together, and then equate that to the fact that I would also put a lot of thought and care into marketing their home.
So out of curiosity, these so you're talking about sending out solds, or the last 4 sales. Is that's not a postcard? You're actually doing that in an envelope?
I am. So those I do in a letter, where I'll highlight, I just did one for a condo complex, actually a little bit outside of my market, but I thought, what would be something that I would want to know about my area? And I did a little bit of research and saw that over the past 15 years, we had the 4 highest sales in this complex in the last 12 months. And I thought, well, that's something that's really useful that I could write a letter about. So
now, are you sending these to your past clients that are out-of-town owners, or are you sending these to just prospective clients?
Prospective clients, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. And so when you're sending in the letter, are you putting photos of those sales, or just kind of outlining it? I mean, when I get the letter, okay, it's going to be handwritten. I'm going to open it.
Yeah.
And then what's in the package?
So I have a little paragraph at the top, and then the sales or bullet points, because I know that our attention span is about 8 seconds. Even if you get something open, I have about 8 seconds to catch their attention. So I put the sales in the middle of the letter as bullet points, no photos, but just listing the sales, what they sold for, how big they were, what the sales date was. Because I thought, if they look at that, and then they also see the name of their complex, I'm going to hopefully hook them, and they're going to read the whole letter. Because I still think at the end of the day, if you own a property in any given area and somebody provides you something of value about the value of your property, they're going to be interested.
Cool. So now, in terms of, so is this one of the primary things you're doing for the second homeowners, just mailing out these letters? Are you doing postcards with it as well at times?
I do a mix of postcards sometimes as well, especially if I want to do something really big and I don't want to hand address 500 envelopes.
Right.
I'll do a postcard for that. But then sometimes I'll just try and pick a really visually beautiful photo, something that's maybe unique to our area, so they know, oh yeah, I know that mountain, that's right in my backyard. So some kind of hook, something where they say, this is relevant to me. This is not just something that's going to go in the trash.
So then help me quantify, if you can, and you may or may not be able to, but you're mailing, generally speaking, to about how many people each time, and what type of return is that producing in terms of people calling you up and say, hey, Carrie, I want to sell, or I want to buy. What do you get out of it?
So there's 2 areas that I farm regularly, and I'd say I send out about 100 to 150 pieces per area. I recognize too that there are people who get my letters on a consistent basis, who put it in a folder and say, when I'm ready to sell, I'm calling her. I had a sale last year, and that's exactly what the person told me. I've been getting your letters for years, and I knew when the time came for me to sell, you were going to be the person I called. So, if you think of it, some of the stuff you're filling a pipeline for years down the road.
Yes.
But I think consistency is also very important. I would say in general, on average, my response rate from those is maybe 3 to 4 calls or emails per mailing, which I think is still pretty good and well worth it to me. Now, they're not always ready to sell at that moment. It might be, hey, I got your letter. I have some questions. Could you do a market analysis for me? I'm not ready to sell yet, but I'm thinking I'm going down that road. So they don't always turn into an immediate client and an immediate contract. Sometimes it's just the beginning of nurturing that relationship and making that connection.
Yeah, so that's really good though. 3 or 4 calls per mailing, because now you kind of identify who it is in the pipeline, and they get a chance to engage with you. I would assume that those people who are calling you, when they do go on the market, have you ever lost any of those to another agent?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I have to really think about it, but I don't think I ever have.
Well, so that's the most important part in my mind, is if you can just get them to engage with you, even if it's early on, then you pretty much have it. I want to switch topics real quick to your primary homeowners. They're in the, because you're doing both types of marketing.
Right.
And I'm assuming that the marketing is different that you do for secondary home versus what you do for primary. Is that correct?
It is. So one of the things that we've been, I work at a small office and I have a couple of colleagues. One of the things that's been really important to us is supporting our community in any way that we can. So we do a lot of event sponsorships throughout the year. I'd say we host a couple of our own, and then we sponsor a couple of other events that the community does. So for instance, we sponsor the summer reading program, and my colleague and I will go to the library and do a craft with the kids and send them with a little gift when it's all done. We sponsor our local community festival every year. We do a parade float and hand out popsicles to everybody. We sponsor our own pumpkin giveaway in October, where we fill our office with hundreds of pumpkins, and the kids come pick out a pumpkin for free. We sponsor the mutton busting at the fair. So we really try and get our name out there. With community events, we mainly focus around kids because my colleague and I both have young children, so it's something that's very, very important to us. And so we're doing these events that have nothing to do with real estate, but supporting the community that we live in and love. It's not just to generate sales. It's something that we truly feel is important to give back to the community in any way that we can. And so we've found that kind of name.
Is that about, so I'm curious, because this is really cool. Are you doing, besides just being involved in the community, are you doing anything special? And either reaching out to people personally or marketing to them, or is it simply just kind of being present?
Well, it's kind of twofold. So I think there's sort of a natural residual good feelings that people get by knowing that, Keller Williams, Top of the Rockies sponsors these great events in our community. Like, it makes people feel good about what we do for a living, because let's face it, we get compared to all kinds of not nice industries. And some people are not great realtors, but most of them really are good realtors and they're good people. So we have that aspect of it where people feel good about what we're doing and feel good about us giving back to the community. And then in terms of like actual marketing to primary residents, I do a combination of direct mail with them as well. I do handwritten cards 2 a day. I'm really getting disciplined about that.
Good job.
Handwritten cards per day to my sphere, and then a little bit even wider than my sphere. Doing pop buys. That's been a little bit hard for me because it feels a little more pushy than I'm used to. But I find too, if I'm bringing something of value, that I don't feel awkward about it. Let's see, what else am I doing? Well, the Monday morning coffee, which is fantastic, and I'm absolutely loving it. And my clients are loving it too.
So tell people, because a lot of folks listening to this won't know the background of your handwritten notes or pop buys or Monday morning coffee. So can you enlighten a little bit more on that so people know what you're talking about?
Okay.
You're listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. To increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence or from a geographic farm, learn about Agent Dominator. We guarantee your sales in writing or give your money back. To learn more, visit our website at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator from the menu. And now, back to the podcast.
Okay, so Monday Morning Coffee is a program that Beatty does through MailChimp. And there's a little blurb at the top about real estate because that is what we do. But it's short, it's easy to read, it's nothing super technical. And then the thirds of the email, a really nice feel-good story, something inspirational, something really touching about, just other human beings that are on the face of the planet with us. So I get feedback every single week. People say to me, I love having Monday morning coffee with you, or this made my day. I hear from people I haven't heard from in years that reach out to me and say, wow, I'm sitting here reading your email and crying, because it's such an emotional story.
I love it.
That I've resisted doing a newsletter for so long because I didn't want to send emails about how to clean your gutters and when to change your furnace filter, because again, that feels so inauthentic to me. And so salesy and so typical real estate. Nothing against anybody who does that. I mean, if it's your cup of tea, that's fine. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. And so Monday Morning Coffee was such an amazing fit for me because it had a little real estate blurb, but more than anything, it was just something nice to read. And in this day and age where you get so much bad news and you're just bombarded with all kinds of garbage constantly, I love that there's one email that comes out from me per week that is just a really fantastic story.
So these are just some great touches into your personal list. And
Yes.
and I've got to ask you, did you just start doing pop buys from our conversation a few weeks back?
Yeah, and I had something that was kind of in the works too, but then our conversation sort of prompted me like, I really should just do this. People aren't scared of me, and I don't know why I thought like they won't want to see me, but they do. And I've created a business and by being authentic, I am friends with many of my clients after the sale. We hang out on a social level. We'll get coffee together. So I think it was my own personal hang up about they won't want to see me. They won't want to talk to me. And that was really the complete opposite of what it really was.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask a crazy question or an unusual question. Out of everything you've done, what are the one or two things that just absolutely did not work for you, that you tried it was just a bomb? Anything you can share with folks on maybe what not to do?
Well, I would say that when you get those calls from people who are going to promise you a bunch of Facebook ads by pushing your listings out there and creating the ad for you, personally, I have found those to be a complete dud and be very, very expensive. So, and again, going back to being authentic, I think if you want to do Facebook marketing and you want to be reaching people that way, I think it's so much more important for you to just create really valuable content versus paying somebody to build ads for you. So, offer you would host a free clinic at your office to talk about the market or to teach people about different loan types and invite a lender to come in and teach that class with you. Offer something of value. People see listings. They can go anywhere. Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, they can find listings anywhere. If they're on Facebook and you actually want to provide value and make client connections there, I would say offer something of value, offer some kind of content. So that tanked for me. I spent a lot of money on those and I got nothing from them.
Well, cool. That makes sense. Let me shift gears. I want to talk about work-family balance. Now, you have a family, is that correct?
I do, yep.
Tell me a little bit about your family, just so we kind of have a perspective.
Sure. My husband, Bill, and I have been married for almost 15 years, and we have two daughters. Elizabeth is 8.5, and Ashley just turned 5.
I love it. So you got a busy household for sure.
We do, yep. A second grader and a preschooler. So we're not like entrenched in those school sports yet, like I know parents of high schoolers are, but we're still pretty busy. And the work and family life balance has always been a struggle for me. My husband is also a realtor. He sells bigger properties, so we're both in sales, which is difficult, and a lot of times, one spouse will be a realtor and the other one will have a real job where you get paid every 2 weeks. And we don't have that in our home. So that sort of fear of missing out and feeling sort of very attached to your phone and feeling a little paranoid about not answering every phone call is a real thing for both of us. We both struggle with it. And I think setting really good boundaries for yourself and for your family life is very important. But it's hard. It takes work. It takes discipline. It takes you trying to be in the present in that moment. And that's really hard for us to do in this day and age. We're always thinking about something that's already happened or something that's going to happen instead of just being here right now. And so it's almost like a habit you have to form.
Talk to me about those boundaries. What have you and your husband put in place? And I'm sure it's tempting to kind of break the boundary periodically. And how do you hold to it? Tell me what it is a little bit more.
Well, we're not always perfect, of course, but we do try and have a certain time of day where, the business phone calls stop and the, replying to emails stops. I am really particular about my Sunday mornings. We go to church and I do not show property or meet with clients from 10 to 12 on Sundays. Now, after church is over, I'm happy to catch people because I know a lot of my clients, that's the only time they're available. So I do try and accommodate them in the afternoons. But I think you have to decide. You have to decide what's important to you. You have to decide where your priorities lie. And when I look at my two young daughters, and I know they still really like me and they still really want to hang out with me, that might not always be the case when they get to be teenagers. They might rather be with their friends. And all of this that I do in real estate is still going to be here. So I need to, as a mom and as a wife, make sure that I make my family my priority. But like I told you earlier, it's like we're training for a marathon. It does not happen overnight, and you have to just really work at being disciplined and creating really good habits for the health of your family and yourself.
I agree. It takes that discipline, and what I've learned for me is it takes scheduling it out, knowing specifically I'm going to take this time off, or I'm going to cut off the clock at this point, and literally almost putting in your calendar and say the answer is no during these times. Does that make sense?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned church. Talk to me about your spiritual life.
So my spiritual life has been kind of a crazy road. I grew up in Denver, and my great grandfather is actually the one of the founding members of the largest synagogue in Denver. I was actually raised Jewish. But then I moved to the mountains, and there's really no synagogues in the mountains. And so my spiritual life kind of like really just was very dormant for a really long time. And then I had some personal struggles and some business struggles that had come up in my life, and I was just kind of out of options. Like, I don't know what to do here. One personal struggle in particular, there was really no right answer to what I was going through. It was just extremely painful and extremely difficult. And I found myself just kind of on my knees, like, all right, God, if you're out there, I really need your help right now. Like this, I don't know what else to do. And that was when my spiritual life, like almost like a seed that goes dormant, started to just, blow up is not the right word, but completely flourish and grow.
What started to happen at that point?
Say it again, baby.
What started to happen at that point? What were the things that it just started to flourish? Can you give me some ideas on that?
So I have, like in my life, dealt with a lot of anxiety, and living in fear. And this particular situation created a lot of anxiety and fear for me. And when I finally got to my lowest of lows and asked God, please, will you help me? Not only did he answer my prayer for what I really was praying for, but the amount of peace and calmness that he brought to my life was, I can't even really compare it to anything. It was like almost like a light switch went off. Like, oh, I know what to do now. I have peace, I have calmness, and I knew that he was in control and he was in charge. And then from there, I just started to find the Lord and find my relationship with him. And, the Judeo-Christian religions very much cross over each other. But what I think is so amazing about being a Christian is having a relationship, like a real relationship with the Lord. And like anywhere that you might be, you can sit down and talk to him and tell him what's on your mind. And it doesn't have to be formal and structured. You can just say whatever is going through, that you're going, any kind of struggles you might be going through, any kind of painful moments you might be going through, guidance, advice, like, what should I do about this? And that part of it has been so amazing, because growing up Jewish, a lot of it was very hands off. very much like just ceremony and praying, but not having relationship. And that's just such a different ball game, if that makes sense.
No, for me, it makes a lot of sense. Some people it's, oh, holy God,
Yeah.
and others it's Daddy God, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and having
Exactly.
that relationship where you can just bring anything to them, even the little things
Right.
and the big things.
Yeah.
So, how has your relationship with the Lord impacted? If you look at your business, okay, and how you live your life, what are the things that it's impacted that if you did not have that relationship with the Lord, you would probably do things differently? Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I think, um, first of all, like I've always felt like I was a person of integrity, but knowing the Lord and truly knowing the difference between wrong and right and knowing his way has guided me in so many different ways. Like I'll use an example of sometimes you know what the right answer is. It's not really what you want to do, but you know it's the right answer. And when you have him by your side, making that hard decision is so much easier, because you feel differently about your interactions with people. It's not just so much about how much money am I going to make and can I go on this vacation or that vacation. I would say that through my relationship with the Lord, my giving has expanded tremendously, that I realize now how important that is to not just give money, but to give time as well. There are situations that I pray with my clients. Yesterday, I was at a listing appointment and I said, can we pray? And they said, absolutely. And so, we just prayed for God to light their path because they're not really sure if they want to sell or not. Would he guide them? And if their home does sell, that the new people that live here, that they would have peace and harmony and safety in this new home. So it's like, it's opened up a new sort of chapter of my business. I found connection with a lot of people because of our spiritual values align with each other. Sometimes it will come up very randomly. I met a gal yesterday morning and she asked where my kids went to school. And I said, they went to the local school. And she said, oh yeah, I know there's a couple of kids that go to the Christian school. And so then that started us talking about, oh, where do you go to church? Oh, I go here, and so then like that you have that special connection and that you maybe see things somewhat the same.
That's neat. So I love the idea that praying at the listing appointment when we put a contract on our house and our realtor was a Christian. First thing we did is we prayed over the contract.
Yeah.
Really cool. So
Yeah.
in terms of your interaction with your clients from a Christian standpoint, just like praying at that listing appointment, are there anything else where your relationship with the Lord kind of modifies your behavior or how you reach out to people in those interactions?
I would say one thing that's been really cool about working with other Christians is their disappointment level when something doesn't work out is actually really graceful and beautiful. They understand that that maybe wasn't the right house for them because God's got something better. And I try and be sensitive to other people's, viewpoints and spiritual backgrounds. And so I will have that conversation in maybe a more secular way with clients that are not Christian. And I'll say, everything happens for a reason. And maybe that house wasn't for you because there's a better one coming. But I know when I work with Christians that they recognize that right off the bat, that we don't even really have to have that conversation. They're acutely aware of the fact that there's something better. In fact, I spoke to a lady yesterday. She has her house for sale in Estes Park. And she said, our house has been on the market for 3 weeks and we haven't had an offer. And that's so unusual. And she said, but then my husband and I realized, well, God doesn't want us to sell our house yet because they don't have anywhere to go. They can't find a rental here in Kremling. So she said, it makes perfect sense now that he's waiting for us to find a rental before he makes us homeless.
Talk to me a little bit in your own personal life, because there's that level of peace that was with your client just then, of being able to look at things and say, it's okay because the Lord is guiding it. Can
Yeah.
you share anything in terms of your business or how you manage life as a realtor where there's just that overwhelming sense of peace?
Yeah. Um, and because most of my life I lived with a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, again, it's kind of like a habit you have to break, a bad habit. But knowing every day in any given moment that I'm not alone and that he's always there, it's hard to describe. It's like what kind of blows my mind is I see people all the time that are searching. They're searching for something, that one thing that's going to bring them X, Y, and Z, happiness, fame, fortune, love, whatever it might be. And the one thing that's actually going to be the cure for what ails them is right there, and it's free. It's for the taking. It's there for anybody who wants it. But I also recognize that I had to go on my own journey to get where I am right now, and that in God's perfect timing, all of that came about in the way that it did. And that if it would have happened artificially, or if I would have been pushed into something that I wasn't ready for, it wouldn't have been him, and it wouldn't have been what it is now. So I know his timing is perfect, and I try and encourage and bless people as I can, but I also recognize that he has the ultimate plan, and that he will bless people in the appropriate way.
Hey, I'd like to ask you, I don't know if there's an answer to this, um, either because you may not have something to share or you may not want to share, but is there something specific you can share that, that if you did not have the relationship with the Lord and this event happened in your life, you would have responded just totally different? Is there anything like that that you can share? And then what was the outcome of it ultimately? Does that make sense? I'm looking for kind of a testimony, so to speak, of how has the Lord been really good in in a time frame that someone else would have panicked.
Yeah. Well, I do have one specific example, and it was actually uh, kind of in the midst of my spiritual journey. I mean, we'll always be in our spiritual journey, but it was at the beginning of mine. I had a situation come up at work in my own professional career that was made me very anxious. It was very difficult to kind of wrap my head around. It was scary. It was something that I couldn't really talk to anybody about it because of its confidential nature. And again, I found myself kind of on my knees, like, God, I need your help. I don't know what else to do. And I couldn't eat. I was so nervous. I was miserable, really. And I remember that night, I drank some calming tea. It was like, in the grocery store, they have all those
Yep.
teas that are for different ailments. And I found one, calming tea. So I drank this tea, and I prayed, and I got on my knees, and I said, God, please help me through this situation. And when I woke up the next morning, my first thought was, wow, that tea really works because I feel so calm right now. And then I realized, I was like, oh, no, it wasn't the tea. It was God and Holy Spirit descending on me and bringing me peace. And I wouldn't necessarily say that immediately my problem was solved. It did eventually resolve itself. But what was brought to me was just an overwhelming sense of peace, and in the sense that it's going to be okay. Like, I don't have to beat myself up about this problem. I can take it to him, leave it at his feet, and walk away.
That's neat because the Bible says that perfect love casts out fear.
Yeah.
And when we are in those situations where we can be afraid, then God's love can push it out, and we're no longer afraid. And the outcome, if we're trusting the Lord, is always good. And it may not be easy, but it's always good.
Exactly. And that's what it was for me. I just took a deep breath, and I said, thank you, God, this is going to be okay. And that was actually, then that Sunday was the first time I ever stepped into a church. I had been a Jewish girl my entire life, and I thought, well, this is going to be really weird. And it wasn't weird at all. It was exactly where I needed to be. It was beautiful. It was welcoming. And I've been going ever since, and that was probably 6 years ago.
Wow. So you're just a 6-year-old Christian now.
I am. I'm That's what I tell my pastor all the time. I'm like, you got to treat me like a kindergarten. I should be at Sunday school with all the little kids.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, in wrapping up, is there anything else you'd like to share, either from your relationship with the Lord and how that's been in your life, or anything in terms of your business that would help somebody?
Yeah. I would say that my pastor asked me to open prayer at our next service. And at first I was super anxious about it. I don't like to speak in public. And he said, I understand, Carrie, but consider this. You're speaking in front of family and you're speaking to God. And when he put it that way, I thought, I can do this. I would say to anyone out there who is maybe struggling, who is doubting themselves, you're maybe in a hard place with your business or your personal life, that at the end of the day, you have the fortitude inside of you, and with God's grace and his strength and his love, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, that's all we're asking you to do, is just don't give up, keep moving forward. Challenge yourself sometimes, step outside of your comfort zone of where you think that you need to be or want to be. Sometimes that's where our greatest growth is happening. And then also to just, one thing that's helped me so much in my business and in my personal life is to try and live every day with gratitude. To look around and see how we have been so blessed. I mean, not just to be able to live in this country and be, one of the richest people on earth. I think they said if you own 2 cars, you're in the top 8% of the richest people on the planet. Not just that, but when you look outside and you see God's beauty, the mountains, the valleys, the forests, the ocean, the deserts, the plains, that he put all of that here for us. I mean, the fact that you can go to your sink and turn on the water and clean water comes out. I mean, I kind of geek out about this a little bit because it's one of the things I'm super passionate about, that we have so much bounty and so many blessings. And if you can hold on to those things, the things that we ought to be grateful for instead of all the problems in your life, it will turn things around for you almost like the snap of a finger, because that is what perspective and gratitude can do.
I have to share a story. So it's not my story, third party. But, in the Bible, it says that whatever is good, whatever is pure repute, whatever is honorable, all these things, dwell on that. And there was a couple I was listening to teach many years back. They had gone through almost at a point of divorce. He was always gone. He was always brash. He was always go, go, go. She wanted him home and wanted more loving and compassion. And it got to be a real rift, to the point that she had, if I remember the story correct, she had the divorce papers in hand. And the Lord put on her spirit just a little check in her spirit that this is not the route to go. And she went back to the scriptures where it says to, just like, focus on those things that you can have gratitude for. Focus on those things that are good. She's actually made a list of everything that she loved about Bob and Cindy Harrison many years back. What she loved about Bob that she fell in love with. What was interesting is those were the same things that she was now frustrated with, right? But she started to focus on that, and every time she would get upset, she would thank the Lord for these great traits and qualities of Bob. And she said it was just a matter of, so fast, she fell back in love, and their marriage has been really super strong. So this whole attitude of gratitude and thanking the Lord and just being appreciative of all that he's done is really powerful. So I appreciate that.
It really is.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end of this call. So Carrie, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
and
you.
For those who are watching or listening, if you do like this, let me encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. Be sure to like it on iTunes and on YouTube. And please also like our Get Sellers Calling You Facebook page. If you want to learn more about us and how to grow your business, just visit our website, getsellerscallingyou.com. So Carrie, thanks again, and it was a real pleasure to visit with you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, y'all be blessed. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it so you never miss another episode. And please like our Get Sellers Calling You Facebook page. Also, if you want to increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence, dominate a geographic farm, or convert home valuation leads, check out our Agent Dominator program. We create custom content that differentiates you from other realtors, then use it to keep you top of mind with your prospects with postcards, targeted Facebook ads, email campaigns, video interviews, and more. And the best part is we guarantee your sales or give all your money back. Learn more at GetSellersCallingYou.com and select Agent Dominator in the menu. Thanks for listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. Have a great day.